bunch of really surreal movies, like Moonrise Kingdom, um, Grand Budapest Hotel. I see like the first couple of letters. I love it because he almost always casts as one of the people in this movie. Oh, this is the new song. Whoa. Wes Anderson.
All right, thank you for joining us for the last briefing before Thanksgiving break. We have Tyler Roy is going to be talking about a little bit about European weather and probably also some stuff going on here in State College. So, Tyler.
Thank you. I'm going to first discuss what I'm going to consider the boring weather, aka here for the next several days, and then I'm going to jump over the pond to where the weather has been making the headlines, just not in the news, but also over the last several days in the Twitter sphere. If you have a lot of media people, you probably might have heard of a quote-unquote Medicaid, and I'll dive into that, into those rare phenomenons that do occur in the Mediterranean. I was kind of somewhat joking with Bill Savant when I came in. Today and yesterday are going to be the warmest days of the week, but yet they will feel like the coldest days of the week, just because of, well, right now it's somewhat breezy out there, and yesterday there was somewhat of a breeze compared to on Monday and Tuesday when I went out walking. There was hardly any breeze out there. It felt warmer than what it is currently. Current observations right now just across much of Pennsylvania going into Ohio and whatnot shows temperatures are somewhere in the upper 30s up to the mid 40s. I do believe at the 11 o'clock, this, yeah, 11 o'clock, it was up to 48 here. The airport was at 48, so it looks like it's cooled off. We've somewhat reached a high for the day. Now we're kind of going into that northwesterly flow, and we can see probably as the cooler air comes rushing in from Michigan and from Canada, as we have high pressure coming in. If you look at radar, if you let radar do its thing, see the rain moving into New England, snow up into the higher terrain, and where it should be snowing at this time of year in New England. See some of those showers moving through central Pennsylvania over the last couple of hours. And it does appear, if we go to the latest HER run, that any shower threat for us is somewhat over with. It kind of does show some kind of lake effect type deal breaking out later this afternoon. We could see another shower or two somewhere around the 5, 6, 7 o'clock hour. Interesting to know, the latest HER somewhat has a Huron connection of showers. Overall, though, it's showing any clouds by this evening kind of stopping along the Laurel ridges in Highlands, and then stuff finally just petering out as you go into the overnight. Take a look at satellite. You kind of can see that cloud kind of just hitting the Laurels and just kind of being shredded apart, with some of them making their way through. I think this is some of the cloudiest since probably 7, 8 a.m. this morning. It's been just looking at the latest satellite. So the next question is not necessarily what's going to happen later today or tomorrow, but we're all wondering, do we have to bring our raincoats for Saturday? Ironically, we have to deal with the last 2 games of the season with some kind of interesting weather. The storm system that we have to be watching right now is out in the Pacific Northwest, and it's even bringing heavy rains and snow to the Sierra Nevada in California. But as this trough swings in, it's kind of going to glide across the northern parts of the plains and whatnot, and we have a storm system kind of essentially develop across the plains. Yeah, where did my mouse go? There it is. if someone develop across the plains, and what's going to kind of do is it's going to be the development stages as it continues to move and progress eastward across, and it's kind of really going to really develop in the Ohio Valley and in the Great Lakes over the next 24 or 48 hours as we get into the Saturday time frame. This area of low pressure will kind of will develop, and it's kind of, we've had rain in the forecast at least since we started putting in Sunday. I think I was off last weekend, but here coming in to work on Monday, early Monday morning, and seeing that the Europeans starting to throw rain, and that there were mild, of course there are mild differences, but it looked like it was going to be a wet Saturday. As of Sunday, it looked like from what the commentary was, is we were backing the front up. And it's kind of the theme even today, looking at the latest 12Z GFS, and I'll take you guys a look at the 0Z European, and that's kind of what the case seems to be, of backing that front up ever so slightly, where we might get some of the game in somewhat dry. But nevertheless, the trough kind of digs in, and what's going to help enhance the trough is this little Vortex going to be diving in during the day on Saturday, diving in through the plains, and it's kind of going to enhance the trough to kind of linger through the region through Sunday and even into the Monday timeframe. We'll set up the first major threat for lake effect snow, possibly for Buffalo, for Cleveland, going on Sunday. Nevertheless, it looks like it was very interesting. What caught my eye this morning is that the GFS brings kind of the rain towards the lulls, and then kind of shuts it off by 7 a.m. But as we go through the morning, it looks like we have one push come through, but then we kind of dry out for somewhat the afternoon time period. And then we kind of we're going to be in that warm sector. We might have some showers around. Looks to be breezy with the southwesterly wind. And then finally, the GFS says, okay, after 7 p.m., you guys can expect to get poured on as the front approaches. And it could very well much, I know we were discussing at work, or there was discussion at work even yesterday, there's still a very low possibility of it somewhat turning out like Michigan State in terms of there could be some rumbles of thunder or even a few lightning strikes. So hopefully by then we have a sizable lead, so we do not have that fiasco happening again. But it is a very much possibility that with this front, there could be a rumble of thunder or two. And then finally, that front pushes through late Sunday night, and then that front is approaching New York City by Sunday morning. The European is very much similar with the trough coming in Pacific Northwest, still over through Friday, still out in the Northwest, and isn't as pronounced as the GFS is. By Saturday morning, it's moving through the Midwest. Finally, is not as pronounced or doesn't get enhanced like the GFS is forecasting. So it doesn't last as long through Sunday and through Monday through across the region. Nevertheless, we could go back and we can see the current storm for us moving through. And as we continue to go through, we see that Pacific, West Coast storm kind of developing out in the plains, finally moving through. It's saying that there could be some rain in the morning, especially west of here. Some of it could be on the locally heavier side. If I remember correctly, I think there might be flood watches or flash flood watches up for the Lake Erie region going forward. And then finally, the front doesn't really move through until sometime Saturday night. The Europeans a little more bullish with how heavy this front could be in terms of precipitation amounts, but the Europeans also a little bit more wetter in terms of game time for us than the GFS is. So if you're still hoping for a dry game, I'm going to say, sadly, I'm one of those. We're probably going to have to bring up ponchos. Probably the wettest time is I'm going to probably say it's going to be the second half. So anytime after the 6 o'clock time frame, with showers around, even something probably for the start of the game. Any questions associated with that? Anything? All right. Hopefully, the game will be fun then. So I don't know if you've seen the news, but there's major flooding currently going on in Greece right now. Last I knew, and this was as of yesterday, so I have very old information, at least 14 people had perished in Greece, some of them in Athens itself. This is the second, this is the second cutoff. I'll go to, oh, there we go. This is the second cutoff low pressure system we've had in Italy or in Southern Europe for the last couple of weeks. Last week it was a little bit further north, and you saw pictures out of the Alps getting up to 3 feet of snow, 4 feet of snow, while northern Italy got slammed with rain and thunder, and it didn't really make much news because it didn't cause that much flash flooding. You did see some water spouts off the coast of Rome, and even down towards Sicily and whatnot. That system finally moved out late last week, and then finally, or not really finally, we had a second system kind of really dive into Italy, and it's kind of stayed stalled, and it's essentially another cut-off low pressure system. And as I kind of made mention earlier, the talk of the town, at least on Twitter sphere for those people I follow in Europe, is that a possible Medicaid, and I'll explain what that is, and then people, of course, on this side of the pond started getting into that, and I said, oh great, we'll get into the big rain. Medicaid is essentially a Mediterranean tropical-like cyclone, except it doesn't have the full characteristics. You do not need to have warm sea surface temperatures. That's one of the big differences associated with that. Another one is that this is, if you're going to say when is the likelihood to see a quote-unquote Medicaid, this is the season. It is essentially the fall through the winter times. In the summer times, you rarely get a cut-off low pressure system stuck down in Southern Europe. You get those a lot in the wintertime when you have a more active flow, a more active pattern. And they really develop, there's two really main regions they develop. The first one is they develop in the Western Mediterranean. That's the more favorable area. Why? Less land. You have a couple of islands here that are mountainous, and then you have the Balkaric Islands, which are very small. Otherwise, it's open water. You go towards the Eastern Mediterranean, you have a whole lot more land. And it's just not flat land, like maybe the Gulf Coast or the Southeast United States. It is mountainous terrain. So I'm talking Sicily, Italy, Greece, Crete, Cyprus, all those, Malta, all those islands are very mountainous. So when you start throwing terrain in there, terrain does funky things, it affects it. It affects how things develop. Nevertheless, the big thing of how a Medicaid develops is that it's typically under a deep cutoff, cold core low in the mid and upper troposphere. So it's essentially your cutoff lows that are very deep and whatnot, and you get the surface lows to get the right circumstances of, you get warm. To compensate the lack of warm sea surface temperatures, you need warm surface air temperatures. In which for that is, all you have to do is tap into North Africa, pull that stuff out, or pull that temperatures up, and you have what you're looking for in terms of that. Out ahead of this low itself is during the 70s, but you think, well, is it unusual for them? For this time of the year, still getting into the 70s is still remarkable as we getting close towards closer to winter time. So the last several days, the models have all been going on their own solutions for if it's a Medicaid or not. And, the ones that I'm going to take a look at are more geared towards Europe. The first one is we're taking a look at the RPEG model, which is a French model that primarily does Europe forecasting. The next one is we're going to take a look at the ICOM, which is the German model, which is a global model. So if you go, I believe, maybe it's the McGill site, there's the Canadian weather site that has the icon on it. You can access more local for United States and whatnot. Currently, right now, the RPEG is getting its 12Z data in, but what's been happening is this system just kind of been spinning. So you've been getting rain coming in from the south, and it's folding up, and so you have your counterclockwise. It's all been dumping up into the eastern slopes of Italy, plus you're getting the stuff going into Greece. So a lot of what's happening is you're getting the rain, the heaviest rains are falling in the mountains, and then it's all coming downstream down the rivers. Yesterday, make sure I get my days right. Yesterday, my colleague reported that Athens hadn't seen rain, but yet it was flooding. It's because all the water coming down the rivers, and that was leading to all the flooding from all the mountains. And you can see Severe Weather Europe, which gets this, all these footages. This here is up in northern Greece, but this is just all that water just coming down from the mountains. So this is how people are perishing. It's not necessarily that it's pouring in where they are and it's flooding and they get caught off guard. They're getting caught off guard because all of a sudden you have all this water coming down towards you and you weren't expecting it. And that's sometimes how a lot of the floods in Europe do happen, is it's raining in the mountains and all of a sudden it comes down the rivers and they can't hold it. So the RPEG, let's see, here's the center, the true center is down here. So it's closer towards, it's kind of in the middle of the central Mediterranean. But as we go through the rest of it today, you kind of see it kind of developed. And you see it's below 1,000 millibars, which is somewhat, you somewhat see that once in a while during the winter months. You see low pressures get that low. And what you kind of do is once you start getting down to 990 millibars as the RPEG is forecasting, your eyes pop out. Because you think, okay, what's happening here? And you see it looks like, essentially looks like a tropical system, at least according to the model, as it goes through. Thankfully though, no, not thankfully, just take a look at this. It does look like it takes it into very southwestern Greece. These systems are very finicky. There's no official, unlike we have the Atlantic, it's the National Hurricane Center, and you go into the Western Pacific, you might have the JMA, or if it's near the Philippines, you have the Philippines take care of it, or if it's Australia, the BAM take care of it. No one really monitors the Mediterranean for any tropical features. So it's kind of, yay, we get to call it, it's very gray. In reality, Greece handles the forecast for the Mediterranean, but no one really says, hey, there's no official word that says this is a Medicaid or not. This is a low pressure. There's nothing like we have everywhere else in the other basins. So it's kind of a free-for-all of it's a Medicaid or not. And with that, they can last as short as 12 hours or as long as 5 days. They can easily flare up and flare down. It's somewhat very much like some of our tropical systems we've had this year. They look very crummy for about majority of the time that they're named, and maybe for 12 hours they actually have the tropical characteristics. The real big thing, besides talking about the Medicaid, I really wanted to show you was, is you might have also heard the term Bora winds. And so what the Bora winds really are these winds coming off the coast of the Balkans, all going towards Italy. You get these winds when you have an area of low pressure down in the Mediterranean, somewhere around Italy, and you have high pressure moving across, let's say, Germany into Poland and whatnot. With that, you necessarily don't need a tight gradient. All you need is you need some high pressure above you and low pressure in South Italy, and you're going to get wind screaming from the east, screaming down the western slopes of the Dinaric Alps towards Italy. That's how last year was probably one of the most snowiest years on record for central Italy. I believe, if memory serves me correct, it was mid-January when you had the Boa winds break out, and you kind of can get, when you have easterly flow, you can get stuff to upslope, and it just pours on the coast, or even in this case, it was snowing along the eastern coast of Italy. It was dumping 3 feet of snow up in the central mountains of Italy, and then what happens is, a day later, they had an earthquake, which in turn led to the avalanches going on, which in turn led to road closures even more, because you had people trapped, you had snow down. It became a very, what's the word I'm looking for? It became a very dangerous scenario. So you see the Boa winds really break out, and think, oh, Boa wind is 50 miles per hour. These things can get up to 100, 150 miles per hour and really do some damage. And these are very localized. You can see, just based off the forecast here for 6 hours from now, from 6 hours from this morning, so getting close to it, how localized they are. It's not the whole coast of the Western Balkans you're going to see it. And they will do damage. They will knock walls down. They will knock stuff off buildings. They will knock trucks over, I believe. And that's not even just on the Balkan side. That's also on the Italian side as well. So the Mediterranean, whatever it's going to become, will be getting the big story because it's help enhancing the serious flood issues going on in Greece. But it's also the winds that have been causing a lot of issues the last several days. So with this area of low pressure, you kind of get the rain along the western coast, and you're also getting stuff coming up on the eastern coast of Italy. That's why you also still Greece. You also have the flooding going on up, very centralized up in central northern Greece, and stuff coming up upsloping. So it's just pouring. So a lot of active weather going on for the next several days in Europe that will be making the news as flooding will probably continue for a lot of these places. Any comments? You're welcome. Well, thank you guys for having me.
The week that we get back, we'll have Elliot Abrams.